Hello and welcome to the Bradley Young channel. Welcome to my channel, which is about me and my sewing journey and learning to sew, really, I suppose, basically, through making clothes. And I tend to make clothes by using sewing patterns, and today's sewing pattern is Kwik Sew 4083. I say today's pattern, it'll take me longer than a day to make this, but this is the one I'm going to have a go at. It looks like a relatively simple top. I'm going to be making, well, I say view B, but effectively the material I'm doing is it's going to be all the same material, but the only real difference between these two particular patterns is that view B has the contrasting side panels, whereas view A is all the same. View A is slightly longer sleeves than view B, but I wouldn't mind having the slightly shorter sleeves. So I am effectively making B, but it's all going to be the same colour material. It's not going to be a contrasting material between them. So what material am I going to be making it with? Well, I've got this stuff. Now this stuff, odd looking stuff that it is, I have actually made a couple of items from this before, and I've still got about 2 meters left, literally just under 2 meters. Now when I made this before, I didn't really know much about sewing. I think it is a woven, pretty sure it's a woven, but even though it is a woven, it has a tiny little bit of stretch to it. So if I can just get a part of that, there we go. Now it doesn't stretch that way, but it does stretch that way. So on the cross grain it stretches, because there's the is that right? I don't know, I think so, yeah, I think it stretches on the width, but only a tiny bit, probably something like about 10%. It's a tiny bit of stretch in there, which is fine with me. Don't mind having a little bit of stretch. Makes it a little bit easier with sizing, because if it is a little bit on the tight side, you can get away with it. Well, hope I can anyway. But that's the material I'm using. Now, as I say, I've got literally just under 2 meters. Now, having had a quick look at instructions and had a look at the back as to what the sizing is, I reckon that I'm going to need that full 2 meters. Now, I said I had made something else with this material before, and one of the things I'd made, this is one of the very first things I made, was this, well, call it a top. It's not that long, but it's utterly the wrong size. It doesn't fit in any way, shape or form. It's a bit here and there, as it were, so it wasn't brilliant. It came out quite rubbish, really, but the trouble being with that is it used up a certain amount of material. The plus side is that having used up a certain amount of material, I've still got that material. I mean, it wasn't to say it was a disaster, I wanted to throw it in the bin. It just doesn't fit at all, and that's because at the time I didn't really understand sizing and how to size up a pattern properly, so it's just one big bag, really. But it does give me the opportunity to take some of the pieces from this out of this material, which helps me to be able to use this main piece, especially for the bigger bits. So there are some pieces I can get out of this. I just got to take it apart, really, and then I can use that. And really, that's where I'm at. That's my start point for the Kwik Sew 4083 top. So I think next up, I better get the instructions out and have a darn good read so I know what it is that I'm doing. So let's have a look at these instructions then. There is only 2 pages, this side and this side, so can't be too involved, I suppose, because there's not a lot of paper to this. So first of all, I suppose quickly have a look at these the views of the patterns, and really it definitely is that the difference between A and B is just that they put some contrasting panels here, and A has a slightly longer sleeve. Really, it's not really much long at all. It's still a short sleeve garment. Other than that, pretty much the same top, really. Now, as I can see from here, all the pattern pieces are the same for both tops, with the exception that you shorten the sleeve, but it's still the same pattern piece. So yeah, that just goes to show that the top uses all the same pieces. It's just what material you use and whether you have shorter or longer sleeves. Marking out the layout, well, that's fairly straightforward. I mean, as I was explaining before, I've got an extra bit of material that I'm going to be using. I might actually use it to cut out these, what would be the contrast panels, even though they are going to be in the same material, just from the other top I'm taking apart. And then the rest of it can come from the main material, and that should be plenty enough there, hopefully, to get it all out of. Then we're over to doing the interfacing. Fairly straightforward. It's only on the collar or the neck facing pieces that require that. And then we're on to the main actual pieces. So effectively it starts off by stitching the front panels to those front side panels for the front piece, which will end up with one big front piece. And then we've got stitching the back piece, which is the back side panel on the back piece, and we'll end up with two parts there because it's got a zip in between. And then we have to back to shoulders, then stitch the front pieces to the back pieces at the shoulder seam. Then I've got the collar facing, and then it's a case of fixing it on and trimming it down, under stitching that collar facing piece on. And then it says here, turn facing wrong sides and press attach facing to shoulder seam allowances using hand stitches. Now, hand stitching there, now I wouldn't hand stitch, I'd probably put some ditch stitching in there from the sewing machine, just to hold that in place. Next up it says about doing the sleeve. Yep, standard ease gathering on the sleeves, and then you put the head of the sleeve into the sleeve, or sorry, the sleeve head into the material at the shoulder, which is brilliant. That's standard sort of thing. And then do the side and sleeve all in one, which is how I prefer to do it. I find it simpler that way. And then hem the actual, I call it the cuff, it's the end of the sleeve, it's short sleeve, so just hem that bit there. Then I'm on to the peplum pieces. There'll be 3 pieces, front bit in one, and then the 2 back pieces, just basically putting them together, nice and simple. Doesn't say to finish this off at all at this moment in time. And then we've got to fix the peplum to the upper part. Pin peplum front back, matching centre fronts, dots, panel seams, even stitch along peplum seam. And now it says here overcast seam allowance. Oh right, overcast this edge where we've just sewn it. That's basically what it's telling me once I've actually got that. And then press it downwards, so the seam is pressed downwards and nice and neat and finished. Putting the seam, the back seam together. Now as we're putting a zip in here, what's a neckline? So matching neckline seams and dots at for end of zipper. So we've got to zip up to here. Stitch from bottom edge to dot, and then lock stitches. So that's a normal stitch, and then baste the rest of the stitching up to the top there. Okay, sounds sensible to me. So you baste it in because that's where the zip's going to go, but that's going to be normal stitching. Then it says about this actual stitching of the zip. Press centre back seam allowances open. Okay, pin right side of zip to seam allowance with zipper teeth along basted seam. Yeah, I see what this is doing. This is going to be putting the, if that's the 2 edges that are meeting that are basted, we'll put the zip onto that side and baste it in, and then baste the other side so that when we take out the centre basting on the actual back piece, that'll then open up by the looks of it. Yeah, and we'll be left with the neat edge because we've already folded that over to create the seam. That's what it seems to be saying. And then it says here, once we put that zip on, using the zipper foot, top stitch on both sides of the zipper, so we go round, so that's the actual main stitching to hold the zipper in, and then remove basting stitches as I thought it would be. And then it's got about fold under back edges of back facing to clear zipper teeth and attach with hand stitches. Again, another hand stitching part. I'm sure there's got to be a better way of doing that than what it's saying, but oh well, never mind, I'll have a go. Then it says about putting in a hook and eye in. And then last of all, actually doing the seam along the bottom edge of that peplum. Actually, that's not too bad, is it? It's not a lot involved there, so hopefully it shouldn't be too technical. It's not technical, it shouldn't be too difficult, and hopefully manage to get through that without any problems. Well, I've got all my pieces cut out now, all the pieces that come on the pattern, you know, as you take out the envelope. And what I do is I cut the pieces out like this little one, but with it's so it's got the whole size, so you've got all the sizes there that you need. And then what I do is I now trace that out, but for the size I specifically want. That way I get to keep that. Even though it's cut from the rest, it's still the main whole piece, so I don't lose any information. And once I've traced it out, I'll have just the size that I need. So let's get on with doing some tracing. Well, I've got all my pattern pieces now cut out, you know, cut out, traced, cut out, whatever. They're all there. All the pieces I'm going to need. Quite a few of them. 9 in total, I think it is. But yeah, not too bad actually, looking at them. Now I've got more cut out. I thought, you know, they were quite big pieces, but actually they're not really. They're not that big at all. The biggest pieces are the peplum pieces that go on the bottom. They're actually bigger than any other part. So yeah, now it's on to getting onto some material and getting that material cut out. Well, I've got all my pieces cut out now. Everything's ready to go. Just need to get the sewing machine set up and get stitching it together. Now this is my mock-up, not a good material, not just yet, but hopefully this will give me a good idea as to whether I actually need to change anything or whether the pattern is good to go as is. So better get on with it and see how this comes together. Well, I've moved on a bit with what I'd started. I've actually got the front piece together and I've actually got the back pieces together and done the shoulder seam. This is now giving me the chance to actually just sort of get it on me and just see how it's generally fitting, see if I've got that pattern sizing right. Now I've just pinned up the sides with some safety pins just to hold it together so I can get that general idea of shaping and that. And so far it's actually feeling quite good. I mean, the shape here seems to be sitting really well in just the right place, so yeah, quite happy with that. Now the back is open because this is going to have a zip down the back. Of course, there's still this bottom section that's got to be put on, which is it's called a peplum section that's going to go on the bottom there, so I'll have a bit of a flare out there, but that'll come in a bit. But before I do that, I'm now going to just sort of have a bit of a wiggle round and get an idea of how this is actually sitting on me, because once I get to the zip in, I've got to make sure I've got enough room in there in the way that this sits so that this will not be tight. And so far it's feeling quite good. There is a certain amount of ease in the back there. You know, when I'm putting this together, it does bring it a little closer at the side here, but I think generally there is enough room within this. Now I'm getting a bit of ruching up there, a bit of, you know, sort of, I don't know, but at the moment I'm happy with the sizing. I don't feel like I really need to change anything at the moment, but of course I know more once I've got my sleeves in and other parts on it, and I can build it up. So far I think it's going okay, so let's continue. Well, I've put the neckband in now. I mean, I didn't necessarily have to for the mock-up, but I wanted to just to make sure I could see how that neck was actually going to sit. And that's the front, by the way, and this is the back. It zips up at the back. And I did notice something a little odd with the neckband when I was putting it together. This bit where these two join, this front bit and the back piece, are actually slightly different widths across them. So maybe there's going to be a little bit of adjustment I'm going to have to do to the neckband just to make sure that it's all nice and even for the main event, as it were. But yeah, I mean, it's gone in fairly well. The other thing I've done is I've top stitched it, which it doesn't say to do, but I decided, well, I think it probably would do well from having that top stitching. Of course, not finished off the seams because I don't need to for this, but because I've got to have this zip in the back there, I've actually top stitched, but only started off about it's about 2 centimeters in, and finished the same up the other side, because I'm wondering how the zip is going to go in from the instructions nice and neatly. So got an idea of maybe doing something a little different, but I'll try it on this mock-up when I get to doing the zip. But for now, the neckband's in, and now I'm going to move on to getting the sleeves put in it. Well, I finally managed to get the sleeves actually fitted into the garment. Now, I know it's only mock-up, but these are actually quite tricky, and it's puckered a little bit on this side, but that's not a problem. It is the mock-up. But yeah, the issue being is that when I cut these sleeves out and start to put them in, the first thing I notice is that they seem to be too big. They didn't seem to fit very well. Now, where you've got the notches or the marks on the, you know, where you match it up so you can get it all sort of evened up, they were too long. They were, this edge where it comes to this seam, they were sitting out too far, about 1 centimetre, and it was like, this is the wrong size. So I went back and double checked my pattern just to make sure I hadn't cut out the wrong size, and I had not cut out the wrong size. It was what I was meant to have cut out, but they just didn't fit. It was just too much sleeve, really, to fit into this head. So what I did is I recut this sleeve. I actually made them a little bit longer than what they were meant to be, because again they all seem very short. So I'd lengthened them just a tiny bit, probably be a couple of centimetres, maybe 2.5 centimetres, something like that. But I just feel it sits a bit better. But the other thing I did was I actually went down a size. So these sleeves are from the size small, even though the garment I'm making is in size medium from the pattern sizing. So to me, they fitted in better, but it's odd. There seems to be this oddity that things are not quite sized right. I had a bit of an issue with the neck facing as well with the sizing. It didn't seem quite right. So maybe it's just me. I'm just not reading it right, or I'm just not cut it out very accurately, and that's causing me some issues. But yeah, things don't seem to be quite right. Don't seem to quite sit in properly. So having a bit of a slow time with this, but that's why I'm doing the mock-up, so I can actually find out these issues. But after that, once I've sewn these sides up as well, then actually it's sitting quite well. It's not a bad top, is it? I mean, I've got to now put on the peplum piece at the bottom and then sort out the zip on the back. So I think I better push on with that and just see if I can get to a point where I can try it on and properly see how this is fitting. Because again, the other thing about this, I've noticed it doesn't seem overly large, or I know it's a medium, but it seems a bit close. But I'll have a better idea of what's actually happening once I've got the bottom on and got the zip in. Then I'll be able to properly work out whether this size is right or not. Well, I've got the mock-up finished now, and well, it's all right. It's come out okay. Do have some issues though. Some things I'm not totally happy about. First one, which I already mentioned, was the sleeve. Sleeve sizing seems to be wrong from the pattern pieces, so obviously I've got to change that. Then the next thing is the peplum, I call it the peplum skirt piece that fixes onto here. Now, it goes on okay, but I'm not totally happy about the order of construction, basically, because what it says to do is to basically make the top piece and then put the peplum on, and then you do the zip at the back. Okay, sounds fine, but there's a shaping here that makes that a bit awkward. So my thought is to actually change that order, and what I would be planning to do is to actually put the front piece on onto this front section, and the back piece is on to the back section before I stitch up all the side sections. So in other words, when I come to sew the sides, I would sew it from here all the way up in one go. So that means it's that one seam is a whole seam. I think that'll work out better by doing it that way. Don't know, I'll have to try it and see how it goes. The other thing with this is, well, it seems to fit okay, but shoulders not too bad, seem to be in about the right place, but I don't know, I can't decide if it's slightly tight across, basically across my chest, and this section seems fine, so I'm not sure if is it this side panel piece, there's not enough room or enough width in it. The trouble being is that I'm not experienced enough to be able to start changing that piece on a top of this style. So my consideration is actually to basically make the next size up and see how that goes. And what I'm going to do is I am going to do another mock-up, the next size up, but do the changes that I'm thinking of. I've already got the sleeves change, I know what I'm doing there, but I'm going to change the order construction when it comes to this peplum piece and just see how that goes. Now, it might be that there's no problem with this sizing, which is a medium, because this material that I'm using does have some stretch to it on the width, so I might actually be able to get away with it. It might not be a problem at all, but I am going to make the next size up in a mock-up just to give me an idea, just so I can feel confident about what I'm doing. So I better get that all marked up and basically start again. Well, I've managed to move on quite a bit from the last clip you've just seen, but by the power of video editing, I've actually done quite a bit since the last shot. It's been a little while, and it's been a bit frustrating as well, really. Let's start with where I was, which I think was this mock-up. This mock-up that I had done in this purple, which was the size medium, and I couldn't really decide if it was quite right. Had an issue with the sleeves, had an issue with the way the peplum fitted on, and generally it fitted okay, and I wasn't too bad with that, but I did have one or two issues with it. Now, as you can see, it does seem to go on alright. It seems to be okay, but I just seem to have a bit of an issue with, I don't know, the fit maybe, especially up the top here. Was it right? But then I was thinking, I'm not that concerned because the material's got a bit of stretch in it. But yeah, I was actually going to go ahead and remake it, put in the next size up, just so I could see. And that is this one here, of which I took the zip out of this one and reused it in this next mock-up, just to see how it would work and to try and work out those sort of changes I was going to do in the order of construction. So yeah, and as you can see, this one does seem to fit as well. It seems to be on all right. A little bit more ease in there, maybe a bit too much ease. And again, this brings me back to this thought of perhaps that medium size is fine because material will have stretch in it, as I've said. Yeah, I think that this being the large, even though the sleeves are actually a medium, because it just seemed to fit better, I don't know, it's come together all right. The fact I changed the order of construction as well, especially with the way this peplum goes on and the way that the back zip goes in. Excuse the odd look of this. It was a duvet cover at one point, not too long ago. But now it's this mock-up. But yeah, I'm happy with it, but I think I'm probably going to go back to the the medium size and try and rework that, because I'm just not sure about it. The other thing as well is this, I don't know, this here is like, when you stand like that, there's a bit of tension. Perhaps it's just because I've got maybe a slightly wide chest, but I don't know if that's the reason. Or the way that this princess seam works. I'm not quite sure what it is that's making it feel sort of uncomfortable, but it just, I don't know. So I did another mock-up and I did a couple of slight changes. What I did was to actually widen this centre panel, which is pretty much all I've done, and change the way I put the zip in very slightly, just to make sure that it goes in well. And what I've ended up with is this one. Now, I didn't put the peplum piece on the bottom of this one because I know that what I've done on this one, as far as the order construction goes, works fine. I'm happy with that. It was just this across the front chest here and sorting out these sleeves, because they still don't seem quite right. So this is my my next one, and as you see, well, it does seem to fit quite well. There's less bagginess in there. It's more fitted, which I'm quite happy with. Yeah, there's a slight bit of here on this seam, which is now not quite sitting in the right place because I've added material to the centre, so this centre panel piece is a bit wider. That's fine. I could change these, I could amend it so that they're changed the position. I don't feel confident in doing that. My skills aren't good enough at the moment. I'm still learning how to deal with making changes on the fly, as it were, and I think that's one change just a step too far. So at the moment I'm happy with that. There's less tension across this top of this chest area than what there was before, even though this is actually a medium again. I've gone back down a size, so this is the medium size, and I think that seems to fit better. The sleeves, well, yes, well, now the sleeves wasn't happy with at all. They just didn't seem to fit right. Actually, this is the second sleeve I put in on this particular mock-up. First time I'd used the size down, but then I just basically redrew the sleeve head. I've had to completely rechange the curve as I feel it needs to be done to sit in here properly. And even then, it doesn't have that great amount of room. As you lift your arms up, it does sort of go up there, but it's much better than it was. So I'm sort of quite happy with the way that is. Zip's gone in lovely. I mean, this one's got a blue zip in, but the zip sits a lot better than it did because I've changed the order of construction and I've changed the way I put that zip in. And I think it sits a lot better. So basically, I think really now, after all that, I am actually ready to actually start doing the main make with this pattern alterations that I've done. I just need to sort of make sure it's all put down, written down and marked down correctly on my actual pattern pieces, and then get on to the actual main job. The trouble is, this video's been very long already and I've only done the mock-up, so what I will do is I will make that my next video. So this video is all about me and this mock-up that has really driven me to quite distraction and made me quite frustrated, and it's been quite a hard slog, but I do feel confident that I've got it right now and it's going to come together quite well. So in my next video, hopefully, the actual main make. This one, here we are at the end. Well, anyway, thank you very much for watching my video. I look forward to seeing my next video. Bye.